In this video, learn the 4 reasons this new trader impressed us. Hi, I'm Mike Bellafiore, co-founder of S&B Capital, and we're a proprietary trading firm located in Midtown Manhattan. And I'm also the author of the trading classic, One Good Trade, and the playbook. In this video, a new trader impressed us with a step-by-step breakdown of a trade he made in NVDA. Let's get to work on showing you how you can be more like this new trader to grow your trading account.
This is a trade I took in NVDA from August 17th. It's an opening range breakout trade. I'm revisiting it and going back through it because recently I've been dramatically narrowing my playbook in order to stop over trading and to become more consistent. And this is one of the trades that I will be focusing on. So I thought it would be helpful to get feedback and just really dive deeper into it. So starting off with the trade strategy. So the trade criteria to get me interested would be elevated R-vol with a news catalyst, gapping up at least 3%, institutional ownership above 50%, which will help with some of the buying off the open. I want to see institutions piling in. A strong pre-market level, in this case I use pre-market high. I want to see the stock break above pre-market high with volume off the open. And for this particular setup, this is before NVIDIA had earnings, 2 days before. So it helps in my book to have the stock have a history of getting bought up before earnings releases. And then, like I said, buying pressure. And with the opening range breakout, I want that opening drive to hit a resistance level, have a slight pullback on shower volume, and then get back above that resistance level, all above opening print. So looking at the entry criteria, what actually gets me into the trade, I'm getting in when it breaks above the opening range, right above that high. It's important for me to make note that I shouldn't chase the entry, and it's important to get size on this initial entry. Places to add then would be slight pullbacks on lower volume, only at support levels. And then reasons to sell, I would be selling into resistance, mistake on that. Selling when stock breaks the uptrend from low a day. And then this has to be after 10 a.m. And then I want to get flat when it crosses below the 21 EMA. And that's a signal of momentum shifting from buying to selling.
I like how you're working on limiting your playbook, being more specific about it. When we do this with other traders, R-vol is a very important attribute to be looking at. Pass on the trades. We talked about this in your daily report card last night. Passing on the trades where R-vol isn't elevated is very helpful. And then volume into moves is very important to see to confirm that there's a big order behind your idea.
Okay, so just doing a quick review of what was happening in the markets. So this was the start of a week. In the previous week, SPY was right below a record high, Q's right below an important 272 level, and overall tech was showing relative weakness. We just had some solid unemployment numbers. Claims were coming in for the first time below 1 million since the pandemic started. In addition, there was no progress with the coronavirus relief talks, which was something that at first the market was seeming to care about and have an impact, but later on sentiment was very bullish despite any concerns with that. And then we're seeing some increase in tensions with the US and China, not too important, but something just to have in the back of your mind. And then the markets are gapping up going into the day of the trade.
If you want to learn 3 real-world setups that our traders use, including the simple setup that we teach all of our new traders and the setup that turned one of our traders into a 7-figure big money earner, check out the free webinar that we're currently running. Just go ahead and click the link that should be appearing right now at the top right-hand corner of your screen. That's going to open up this free registration page in the new window, so don't worry, you're not going to lose this video. You're going to learn more in a couple of hours from this trading workshop than from years of online education.
So looking at SPY, Important to note, this is in the summer, so we're seeing lower volume, which is due to seasonality. Not as many people are at their desks and putting money to work, and we are trading right below the all-time high. Important on the 5-day, 5-minute, we're holding above 335, which has been a support level, and we have been seeing some inside days from 335 to 338. So SPY is kind of ranging. NVIDIA is a important tech stock, a major tech stock, so important to also look at Qs. The major levels were 270, 272, and we're closing right below 272 going into this day. And overall, tech has, since the March lows, tech's been relatively strong compared to SPY. So then the 5-day, 5-minute, buyers supported 272 the end of last week, which was Thursday. And then we just had inside day closing right below 272. So the fundamentals for NVIDIA, they have earnings on Wednesday, 2 days after this trade. And this is an important earnings because it's the first time their data center segment sales are geared to outpace their video game sales, which shows a full transformation of the company that started as video games and now have gone into the chip business. They have had some price target raises from Susquehanna and Oppenheimer, the most notable ones, the highest ones. And into this, they were gapping up to an all-time high. Another piece of news that's also bullish is they were in talks to buy a chip maker, ARM, which is a SoftBank-backed company.
I really like how the data center sales are outpacing the video games right now, and so the street is looking at this as a transition different company. That's going to potentially bring in more buyers, different buyers, more long-term holders. Really good to be pointing that out. Fundamentals of this company are getting a lot better.
So just mentioning some of the metrics, their ATR, their average true range is 16.5. Average volume is 11.4. Another one to mention is institutional ownership, 71%. And not much of a short flow at 1.05. On the day of this trade, the R-vol was 29 on the open. Like you mentioned before, it's important to see that be elevated for a breakout trade like this to work. And then the high institutional ownership shows that some institutions could be buying leading up into earnings. And in 2020, NVIDIA has largely outperformed SPY. So something I like to do with all my trades before or after earnings or just earnings day ones is look what they did in past earnings. So looking at the week going into earnings, we could see about 4 days before the stock started getting bought up. And in this earnings, it was similar transformation, important earnings, because this was the first time that the company was starting to see that their data center would become their best segment. And that was when they topped $1 billion in revenue for the first time for that data center segment. So the day before earnings, the stock sold off. Just something to keep in mind. This wasn't the day before earnings, it was 2 before. But just something to keep in mind. And on this earnings, they had double beat EPS and revenue. Revenue was up 39% year over year, which is strong even with the pandemic. And the EPS surprise of the actual compared to consensus was 6.76, which will be interesting moving forward.
And a really good job of being diligent, going back and looking at how this particular stock traded during prior earnings seasons. Love that you're doing that. Love that you're doing that. Something that those that are listening ought to think about how they can incorporate that into their preparation. But very well done there.
Thank you. It helps definitely build conviction and have more context with the trades, which I enjoy. So on a similar note, some technology that you could use. This is just in Python. It's not with our Great Pi, so it is available to people to try out. But this is some code that looks at the week before an earnings. And this right here is downloading all historical earnings. So this is what I'm using to try to see if there is edge in buying a stock a week before earnings based on a particular earnings surprise percentage from the previous earnings. And just to show some of my findings for NVDA. So I took the earnings where the past earnings had a positive earnings per share surprise. And then this is a bunch of the charts to see what they did in the week leading up to earnings with the last date, the day before earnings. As you can see, not everyone increased, but for what I analyzed, you can see that it does have a history of getting bought up into earnings, and particularly the days before the final day before the earnings. So this is a project I'm continuing to work on for a possible swing trade in the future. But yeah, that's some data to collect. And then
I love how you're doing that. And so what's great about that is you're thinking outside the box. You're thinking about how to do something a little bit differently. You're taking what you've learned and trying to put it together in a way that makes sense to you. And remember, all the trades don't have to work. You're just looking for some edge. And so,
yes,
if you find something with some edge, that's great. That can be built into a system in of itself.
Yes, you're definitely right there. So yeah, excited to keep exploring that. So moving on to some other technology, a lot of my trading is based on how I could use technology and be alerted to setups. So these are a couple of filters that I use every day that would help for a particular setup, specific and particular setup like NVIDIA. So on the left is a list of stocks I watch and just the R-vol they have on that day, and then the ATR related move that they have made. So for an opening range breakout, this is an easy way to gauge relative strength or weakness, as well as see what stocks are making 10% or a fourth ATR move off the open, which could be potential good opening range breakouts. The second one's just an R-vol that shows the highest R-vol out of stocks for the day. And then moving on to the last one, all the way to the right, this is a similar filter and alert as the one all the way to the left, but it shows for every stock based on certain criteria who's doing the highest ATR move in relation to their own ATR, and then the lowest to the downside, highest to the downside.
Yeah, and look, what I'm seeing so far already is you are showing unusual diligence. Not going to see the diligence often like what you're showing us. Not going to see thinking creatively and trying to do something a little bit different inside of good trading principles like what you're showing us. Not going to see the use of technology well the way that you are doing it. Those are three things, particularly for the newer people that are listening, those are three things that are standing out right away right now.
Just from the daily chart, you can see it's been incredibly strong. After breaking out above 320, it's basically been completely straight up all the way to 460 in a very short time. And on that breakout above 320, we saw a high volume, confirming it. Moving on to the hourly, just recently it broke out of a consolidation above that 470 level. And above 460 in general is bullish, which was a swing high from early August. The 5-day, 5-minute shows this a little more in detail, a little closer. But my levels going into the day were a support of 465, 468, 470, 472. Resistance levels was that pre-market high that I mentioned in my trade variables, which was 476, 480, 482, 485, and 486.
Superior here with your diligence, with your technical analysis preparation.
Definitely helps. I've noticed when I have time frames aligned and I have more context I trade better as well. One thing to note with these resistance levels is the stock is gapping up into all-time high territory. So technically there is no previous overhead supply. So every seller and every resistance level would be organic to that day. But these are some levels based on ATR moves. And then going into reading the tape, I'll preface it, this was actually the day that Thinkorswim was down. So I frantically got up a chart. A couple hours after, I made sure I had a backup system if this does happen again, which did come in handy when it did. So we're looking at that bottom chart. So the stock makes an opening drive, and we see it hit resistance around 477.50 was the high. So I'm watching to see if we could retake this level. So we're coming into 477 now. When it does get above this opening range high, I would want to see buying pressure, and I would want to see speed on the tape increase, as well as confirmation by volume. So we're now up to 477.50, and we're going to see very quickly make a quick dip back to 477.23. Now I want to see what happens back at this 477.50, 477.70 level. So there's my entry. Now, if it doesn't move away quickly from price, I'm out, and I'll be out at that opening range high. But we see it quickly breaks through 478, has no trouble there. And we see speed on the tape. It's skipping 20 cents, 30 cents at a time. And that was that first video. And then quickly, I'm just going to show some tape on a pullback that I should have done better capitalizing on. Okay, so it's right here. We're going to be watching this 482 level. I want to see if it's going to be able to hold this level, and if it does get it below, I would not want it to spend a lot of time below this level. So about 10 seconds, we're going to see it dip below. We get to 481.96, quickly rebid back up. We're going to test that same level again. Bid holds to the exact cent, and now we make our move back. This was a spot I didn't add on, but noticing that failure to hold below a support level and that quick rebid confirmed by speed on the tape after it got back above 42 would be a great pullback spot to add. And you can see it quickly moves to 43. And just to skip ahead, we then continue going higher, all the way to 485.
We suggest people find a way to clip reading the tape examples into their playbooks so they're better and they can learn more from them. And not everybody does it. And another example of superior diligence from you to put it into your playbook trade.
So going into my trade management for this, one thing to notice is that the stock did break above the pre-market high of 476 on the opening drive. So that's a check in my favor. My entry is 3 lots when it breaks above this opening range high, as you can see right there. And then I would be risking a move below this opening range high. My first sale would be half a tier into strength on a break above 480 resistance level. And at this point, the stock's moved about 4 points, so about a fourth in ATR as well. For my system, I use ATR and I have it up on this top left corner as a reference point, just to have in the back of my head where I should be taking profits, but then using the resistance levels as my actual places.
Get long 3 lots when the stock breaks above opening range. You're gonna have more success when the consolidation after the opening move is longer and tighter.
Yes, you're right.
If there was more time that had gone by and had gone sideways a little bit more after the opening drive, the more success you're going to have with a stock like this. My sense is that this is a potential long right here, not 3 lots though. because it doesn't go sideways enough.
So my next sale is then into 482. We see into 482. It has a slight pullback, quickly then continues with the uptrend, but this is a good spot to take off some size. Then I would sell one tier into 485. At this point, this is about half an ATR move for the stock. And like I showed on the tape, where I'd like to add would be at this 482.50, 482 level. So going into my trade manager, I want to think about how I do look at trades, and I had this as a support level, this 482.50. So when it pulls back and holds above there, I would add half a tier. But when it continues pulling back, I would want to see how it reacts at this 482 level, and on that quick rebid back up, which confirms strength, couldn't hold below the level, I would like to add back another half a tier.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good consolidation there between that 482 and 484. That's a better consolidation than how you added initially for the 3 tiers.
Definitely right. That could be a good place to get size, where instead it'd be like long one tier and then get another one into this area. One thing that's important with these pullbacks is just to be patient and wait for the confirmation of the pullback and have it be at an important level. Where I was a little early on it, at 482.50, I added that because that's a place where it did find support. It was a support level. But however, the add at 482 is even stronger as it holds above the 21 EMA as well as holding that level. So then I would sell half a tier at 46, like I mentioned. And now moving into my reasons to get out, I would sell half of the position when this uptrend from low a day breaks. As you can see, this is a very extended move. As you can see from the distance from VWAP to the high of the day. So at this point, I would want to not have to sit through an entire pullback back to like 42, 44. So I would sell half there and then get flat when it closes below the 21 EMA, which is a signal to me that the momentum is drying up and buying is getting exhausted. So those are my executions.
Just for you to think about in terms of best trades, stock doesn't go down on the open, starts to tick up. To play that first opening drive is something for you to be thinking about right away, right on the open.
Yeah.
Where you got in is fine as a momentum trade. That consolidation, 42, 44, good place to be thinking about. I'm not sure it makes sense. Something for you to think about. And I won't provide a definitive answer. But if you're saying to me, hey, I think something is too steep, and I'm going to wait for something that's too steep to break that downtrend, that's fine. But I would also, if it were me, I would have a system to exit if something got a little bit too parabolic, if it got a little bit too hot. So I wouldn't just look for it to break a downtrend that was too steep. I'd also have a system where I was selling into something that's too strong.
That's a very good idea that I should think about. I did mention this, we had the volume increase when it rejected 490 at this level. So that could be a spot that would show that overextension. So then just going into my trade review, I asked myself a couple questions to facilitate the review, just stuff to think about. So the first thing is, with this trade, what way did the stock trade that made it successful for me? So the buying was clear off the open. It respected levels very well. And this setup doesn't have a lot of drawdown included. Buyers step in immediately, and I'm quickly in the money, which just puts me in the driver's seat and tells me that the setup's right away. And then the specific setup, the opening range breakout, this is a setup where I can nail the entry, and I'm getting prices at some of the best of the day. And like I said, to reiterate, it's very clear when it's working. And it's also a simpler setup, I would say, for newer guys like myself to really capitalize on. And then aspects to add. One thing I want to really start doing more of is thinking through the psychology of how people are long and short, how they're positioned before and after earnings reactions. And I would like to find a way to quantify institutional ownership to see if that could have an edge with these particular setups, to see how many funds are getting into a position or getting out for weak setups. And then I'm going to continue working on that code for a potential swing trade. And then with the tape, I could definitely improve on where to add on that pullback. And with this setup, the main areas to use the tape would be the entry and the ads, as well as, like you said, if I do include selling into strength a little better. And it's just important for me to really continue watching tape and dialing into these key areas, inflection areas.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I really liked at the beginning how you really knew what you were looking for, very systematic about what you wanted to see for the particular trade, very high diligence for how you laid the trade out, how you reviewed the trade in terms of your technical analysis, putting the tape into that, really superior creative thinking for maybe how you're going to use data, and then even in your post review, how you're thinking about, you might want to actually look into how the options were priced and how the options betting was right before the earnings. That's something that might be something we can talk about offline, if you want. And then, really good use of technology. So, when I see a trade like this, I'm not as concerned about how you traded it or how you did or how much you made. What I'm seeing is really great work being done in a trade you should be practicing. What I'm seeing is the type of work that's just better than lots of other traders even here. It's just better. And so I would encourage you to keep building from the diligence in your work, the creative thinking, the use of technology, and keep at it. Hey, go ahead and click our subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos that we're producing for you in the trading community. And please take the time to add your feedback in the comments section for what videos you'd like for us to produce next and what you found helpful from this video. From all of us at SMB, train and trade well.